All right, guys, welcome to Wide Awake News Radio, hour number 2. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath. It is the 12th day of November, Monday. Thank you very much, Gary Hendershot and the Smart Scarecrow program for giving us Wide Awake News Radio's alternative energy hour every Monday, 5 o'clock West, 8 o'clock East. Gary, thank you very much. I appreciate that. He's also running the audio and video portion of the program tonight for the feed to Rinse as well as Justin TV. I'd like to once again welcome all the Rinse Radio listeners, but also mention that we are now broadcasting live on Oracle Broadcasting as well. So welcome, Oracle listeners. Now, Karen sent me a message today asking me if we could do something where we combine the two chat rooms, and I'm working on that with W.A.N over on Oracle to see if we can't do just that, where we can have both chat rooms up in one place so you guys can all hang out together. But if you're on Oracle and you want to join folks in our chat room for Wide Awake News Radio, just go to wideawakenews.com, click on the radio microphone. I think we have about 50 people in there now. You can join those folks, and until we have a way to I know we can do it because we've done it for the United We Strike, United We Win weekends, where we've had multiple chat rooms going on at once. Kind of annoying to me, but some people like it. All the plop plop and blink blink sounds that go off, and having 3 or 4 different chats going at the same time. Any rate, if you're listening and not in the chat and you want to join us in chat, wideawakenews.com, click on the Wide Awake Radio microphone. You can watch us on Justin TV. You can listen to us on the Rinse Network. You can listen to us on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. And later on tonight, you can see my guest and myself, Ed Corcoran. How do I say it correctly, Ed? Because I'm going to do it all night if I don't do it right now.
It's Corcoran. You had it right the first time.
Corcoran. Okay, yeah, just like it sounds. You look just like your picture, and your name sounds just like it's read. So I'm going to do it right. Ed Corcoran is going to be joining us here in just a minute. So if you want to see us later on live do this program, you can also see it on YouTube later on tonight as well. All right, let's get into it. I uploaded a video tonight. It'll be up after the program with just a basic, simple question, and I'm going to bring Ed to the conversation right now. The question is this. Things are unraveling. They're unraveling right now in our country, around this planet. And the question is this: how much longer can we continue on this same path? How much longer will government, with the powers that be, authority, pretend that we are in recovery, pretend that things are going to get better, pretend that our best interests are at heart? I talked to my friend Warren Pollock today. And for those of you who've sent me messages about Warren, he just now today, he had electricity again. Now, this is Warren Pollock. He's a former vice president of a Wall Street firm, did very well for himself in life. And he's defending himself against looters with his 12 gauge. You know, this is what he informed me of today. This is the situation in the largest city in the United States of America, the largest city in this country after a Category 1 hurricane, right? He described the response of FEMA and government as being an absolute cluster, you-know-what, from start to finish. What do you think is going to happen in this country when we have a true crisis of reality, when we reach this fiscal cliff, when we step on the sovereign debt landmine? There is going to come a time when this reality is going to hit, and if the crisis events of the past have taught us anything, is if you are not dependent upon yourself, you are screwed, period. Cut and dry. What's happening in New York, Category 1 hurricane, all the hype in the world preparing the people for it, all the resources in the world have been purchased by our government in the build-out of the security industrial complex. Do you think for 1 second that the billion rounds of ammunition or the millions of servings of storable food and emergency food, that kind of thing, do you think that's all for the people? Because in New York, they can't even get a generator. They can't get a Happy Meal. You know, they're showing up and they're getting a Papa John's pizza, according to Warren, if they're lucky. Do you think all these resources are for the people, or are all these resources for the sole express purpose of protecting government? Hold on to their power, hold on to their control to the very, very end. Ed Corcoran, welcome to the program tonight. Nice to get you on the program finally, and nice to meet you.
Thanks, Charlie. It's good to be on your show. To answer your question, and there's a lot of points that you brought up there.
We can cover them all. We got an hour.
There is a fundamental disconnect, and this speaks to the point of the the recent election, I get a lot of messages and emails from people saying, how in the world could people possibly be so stupid as to re-elect Barry Obama? And don't people? I mean, you would think that even the most drowsy of the sheeple by now would realize that he's leading us to gallop and ruin. And the thing is there is a disconnect. There is I tend to want to call it stupidity, but a lot of it has to do with ignorance. Most people are just shut off. They don't want to look at what's going on. As long as they can keep their jobs and they can, have their 5 hours of television a night, and the world isn't falling in around them, and they can have their iPhone and and everything else, and they're all cool in the gang, and they think, well, it's going to get better. It's got to get better. And so there's the ignorance factor where people just don't pay attention, and they're getting fed disinformation. We are getting fed disinformation. I hate to speak in the third person and think it's like us and them, because that's divisive, and I don't like to do that. But we are getting all this different disinformation. Everybody, all of your listeners, I'm sure, are aware of it from the mainstream media, the disinformation machine. And frankly, yeah, it comes to a point, though, where even I'm just aghast in disbelief. It's baffling my brain cells why I thought for sure that Romney was going to get elected. I thought there's no way that people can honestly, with all clear conscience.
I get it. I get what you're saying, and I was going to hold up and show you here. I got a couple of these roaming around here. These are silver coins that have been showing up in the mail and been given to me directly because I had several wagers out there. I don't know if is that illegal to have wagers. I don't think so. I had several wagers out there on this presidential run, who was going to win it, and I said after the first debate, forget about it. It's going to be Obama the whole entire way. And it lends the reasoning I had behind it. It lends to what you just said. You're dumbfounded that people can think the way they think. Well, listen, it's real simple as far as I'm concerned. You have a nation where, and this isn't a conservative thing. This isn't a Republican thing. I'm neither of them. I'm probably more liberal than I am conservative, if you want to know the truth. And I certainly would never vote neocon ever again in my life. In past life, yes.
They're not conservatives.
Yeah, what's that?
They're not conservatives.
They're not conservatives. No. Right. But here's the thing. We have a nation right now of 50 plus percent need a check from government in one form or another. Maybe not the whole, the whole kit and caboodle, but a portion of their income is provided to them by government. All the hoopla, all the talk of self-sustaining and all the talk of responsibility and it's all bullcrap. It's all garbage. Everybody has a selfish reason for going out and pulling a lever one way or another. And if you have over 50% of the population that's receiving something from government, guess what? That's a real motivating factor for you to get out there and pull that lever the other way. I feel just as strongly the other way as far as my neocon friends, and I got a bunch that wanted to see Romney in there because he's going to take care of the markets. He's going to take care of Wall Street. Wall Street loved him. That's another selfish motivating reason. These people that my neocon friends, they want to pull a lever because they want status quo. They want a Federal Reserve to inflate the value of assets on Wall Street so their investments will go up. That's just as selfish as the welfare individual drawing some kind of check. It's motivated by selfish reasons. Nobody's sitting back and saying, wait a minute, this country has been looted, gutted, and a constitution has been ripped up and destroyed. I'm going to vote on the principles that founded this nation. I'm going to vote for a constitutional republic. Nobody's doing that. Everybody's, we're all in this get your own mentality that we've seen. Why wouldn't we? We've seen it in Washington and we've seen it on Wall Street. So when we have this division, it's not a big surprise. But I want my friends that I talk to that fall into one camp or another, I'm really sure, I'm sure they get annoyed talking to me because I want them to be honest with themselves when they say, I'm voting for Romney. Why? Because you want, status quo, you want Wall Street to be healthy, and you want your investments to do good. And, so everybody's got their own motivations. But to think that the biggest motivating factor, half the people drawing a check from the government, in my opinion, is why that was a shoo-in for Obama. And I'm really sorry. I talked through most of that first segment. I'm going to shut up in the next segment. We're going to be back with Ed Corcoran and more Wide Awake News Radio for just a minute. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, your host. We have about 72 people in the chat. If you want to join them, wideawakenews.com. Click on the Wide Awake Radio button, and that will bring you into chat. Again, I apologize to Ed for dominating that first segment. I do get occasional emails saying, "Shut up, Charlie, let your guest talk," and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Ed Corcoran is the founder of survivalandbeyond.net, so please check out his website, survivalandbeyond.net. Ed, again, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do on the website, and what you do with your program.
Okay, well, my show Survival and Beyond is it airs on the Natural News Radio Network, and you can check out my show. New installments of Survival and Beyond are posted every Thursday at survivalandbeyond.net. You can check out the archive to listen to previous shows, and you can also check it out at radio.naturalnews.com, and they've got my archive up there as well. And on the show, I did a show previous to this called Survivalist Radio, in which I mostly focused on survival and prepper issues. But with this show, I wanted to cover more, get into more of like how we've become slaves and how we've lost our liberty in this country, and also speak more to the I guess you'd call them metaphysical aspects of because I believe that one of the stumbling blocks that we have in our path is that we need to liberate our minds first before we can even know how to go about liberating ourselves as a nation, as a people, and knowing how we get brainwashed and how we get conditioned into believing that we're limited, that we're small, that we're ineffectual, that we can't affect change on a meaningful level, when really we are human beings are incredibly powerful beings, and we have the ability to change our life, to change our reality. But we've been being told what reality is for so many centuries, thousands of years even. I mean, this didn't just start with the establishment of the Federal Reserve, that's what I like to refer to as the turning point for America, where our Constitution and our liberty started becoming usurped and destroyed. But we've been conditioned by institutions for hundreds and hundreds of years, and so we bought into this reality, believing that human beings are the only animals on this planet who have to pay to live on this planet. And so we got boxed into this narrow reality that was created for us by the institutions that want to control us and want to enslave us. And so that's something that I really like to talk a lot about on the show. But it's really a lot of, I call it Survival and Beyond for a reason, because you can only talk about food storage and water filters and and improvised shelters and bushcraft for so long. You really need to get to the crux of the biscuit, as Frank Zappa used to say, and get down to what it really is that pushes our buttons.
Wait a minute, what was it? Crux of the biscuit?
The crux of the biscuit is the apostrophe.
I love it.
Yeah. So just saying, oh, we got to get up, we got to rally, and we got to, what? A lot of that stuff is really, it makes you feel good. I like to say it's like peeing your pants with a dark suit on. You get a nice warm feeling, but nobody really notices. And all that stuff is great. And and I was an activist, and I still am an activist, but I went out to the rallies, and I went out to the demonstrations and whatnot, and then you feel great, and then the next day, nothing's changed. Yeah. The reason why nothing has changed, before, when I first started waking up, and I learned about the Federal Reserve, and I learned about all the ways that we've been enslaved in our culture, in our society, in this country, and the destruction of our constitutional rights, constitutionally protected rights, I should say, because we have these rights. First and foremost, we don't need a document or a government to give them to us. And I went around to all my friends telling them what I thought were great revelations. Like, do you know about the Federal Reserve? Do you know about, Codex Alimentarius? Do you know about the NGOs and how the FDA is being, and all of these so-called, what people think of as conspiracy theories? And I would get one of two responses. Well, the first response would be, what are you telling me this for? I got 99 problems, and Bernanke ain't one of them. Because people are wrapped up in their own world, in their own reality, and they really can't see beyond that. As long as the dog gets fed and the rent gets paid and everything is cool and copacetic. That would be the first response. The other response would be, well, what can I do about it? How can one person have any effect? Well, I'll tell you, the way that one person has an effect, before you can have an effect, before you can make changes, is you have to realize that you have the power to do it first, and you have to shake just get rid of all that bad wiring. We get heads full of bad wiring and programming and conditioning that we picked up, like I said, over generations and generations, and because it was taught to us by our parents, it was taught to us by their parents. What did your parents teach you, Charlie? Your parents taught you that life is about working hard for your boss, making him a lot of money, and so you get a pat on the head, and you get to have your retirement and get the gold watch after working for 40 or 30 or 40 years at a job that you hate, just so you can pay most of it back to the government and whatever else, and you should be thankful for having it. Well, gratitude is important. I'm not saying that it isn't, but the thing is, that is not what we're here for. We are not here to run on a treadmill and give our lives to corporations. And I can hear.
No, I agree, and I'm sorry we're going to cut you off here. I'm going to have you finish that thought on the backside of this second break. But you're right. We are put on this treadmill. We're all trained to be good little cube bots. That's what my brother calls it. You're in a little cubicle. You're a cube bot. You're sitting there making widgets all day long for the man. And we're going to talk about that and more. Wide Awake News Radio with Ed Corcoran in just a few minutes, guys. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath along with Ed Corcoran. Ed, I want you to get right back into it. I'm going to just bring us back to what you were talking about is. Yeah, it's really important to be prepared for what's coming, for unseen disaster, man-made or otherwise. But then what? What are you going to do? If I have the Yellowstone caldera go up, am I better off just to be swallowed up in the inferno because I have absolutely no thought or plan afterward? If it's a financial or a crackdown of tyrannical power. Do I have any notion of what I want on the backside of any kind of a crisis or collapse? Or am I just going to sit there and eat, make sure I have plenty of food to eat so I can sit there and be a slave to the next system that comes down the pipe? And I agree with you 100%. If you don't understand how we got here, if you don't understand where we're at now, and you don't have at least a notion of what you want to see on the backside of any kind of a crisis, then you're just setting yourself up to be enslaved once again.
Well, it's like you were saying earlier in the show, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of fighting between, conservatives and liberals, Democrats, Republicans, and everything. And something I say on my show is we need to forget about being a good Democrat or being a good Republican or a good conservative, and we have to think about being a good American. And really, this is one of the other things. This is why we need to have this paradigm shift in our thinking and in our consciousness, really, because we've given our power away. And we've given our power away to somebody who's got the right label, they got the right letter after their name, and there's fundamentally no difference between the two. Either one of them, you give your power away to them, you're giving your power away to the devil. And I don't mean to get off into a religious tangent or anything like that about it. What I mean is that there's always going to be the first thing you have to realize is that politics don't run our country. The corporations do. That's right. And the politicians are always going to do whatever the corporate mandate is. And we have to realize that it doesn't make any difference whether we're liberals or conservatives. We're wasting too much time fighting with each other and going around in circles chasing our tails. Well, we have to realize that this whole system needs to go. And the only way you can stop this system is to stop participating in it. But people just keep going through the motions, and they have to. We've been programmed to identify with categories and pigeonhole ourselves and put labels on us, so that we know how to identify ourselves, and we know how to identify ourselves to other people, and we know how to think about it. You really have to break down the walls, and until people start en masse breaking down those walls and breaking down those definitions, then we're still going to keep giving our power away. We're still going to keep handing it over, saying this is the guy that's going to do the best for us. Whether you're liberal and your whole deal is you want to get free stuff and you want the government to take care of you, then you're going to give your power away to whoever promises to do that. If you're a Republican or a conservative, and you're financial and you like all of the idea of small government and things like that. There's always going to be something about it that's appealing to you. It is selfish. A lot of things that we do through selfish motivation, but for self-preservation or for whatever it is that we want. But we have to realize we have to stop relying on outside institutions to provide us with what we need, and we need to learn to start doing for ourselves. And
could not agree with that. Go ahead.
And that requires a wholesale shift in your thinking. It requires you to just completely just dismantle what your conception of reality is, and just step out of the system. They call it the Matrix, and they make a lot of references to the movies, and there's a reason for that, because it's a matrix. we're from the time we're born, from cradle to grave, we're told this is what reality is, and this is what we're supposed to do, and you're not doing the right thing unless you're doing this, that, and the other thing, and it's just lather, rinse, repeat, generation after generation. We keep doing that, and it's enough. We need to just dismantle the whole machine, and the way to do that, you start right here, and that's where you really need to that's where you need to start before you can do anything else. Realize that we're giving our power away, and we're the ones who are supposed to who are supposed to be doing these things for ourselves and not relying on some government to tell us what to do. And that's when we'll all be able to put our differences aside and, not having a kumbaya moment here, folks, but just saying that once we stop railing against each other over these imaginary ideologies,
imaginary issues as well.
And imaginary issues and falling for the scare tactics and falling for everything else. I mean, there's not a single bit of truth in anything that we hear from the mainstream media. It is all designed and painted and packaged for us to believe in. It's all meant to control us, And until we say I'm not going to believe it anymore, I'm not going to listen to it anymore, then we're doomed to keep repeating history.
Well, I agree with that. I do agree with that, and I think it's important that we have a lot of people. That's one, I think, niche alternative media, and the internet obviously has helped broaden that number of people that are spreading that message. More and more people, the free exchange of information and ideas, more and more people digging for the truth. A decade ago, 90% of the people would listen to the mainstream media and buy that as truth. Right, they would buy that as being factual, and we know there's a bigger disconnect now between what the populace believes and what mainstream media delivers as truth. In fact, most people do not trust the mainstream media anymore. That's why I believe the internet is such a dangerous weapon against the power elite and the powers that be that want to keep the status quo. But what do you recommend to people through your program, your site? Beyond the necessity for being prepared for disaster. What do you do, Ed, to try to show people that it's mental. You got to step outside of this reality and understand where we really are, type of a thing. What do you do to people to wake them up, to shock them into reality? If it is a shock, or do you ease them in?
It is. I'm sure it's a shock for a lot of people that if they're just hearing this for the first time. And I'm sure there's a lot of my listeners saying, "Oh, what are you talking about?" But on the other hand, there's a greater number of my listeners who who are very vocal, and they've sent me emails, and they've been very responsive and saying, what you're saying is stuff that I always thought was true. I always kind of believed it, but I wasn't really sure. And hearing somebody like me, I guess that I'm just a regular guy. I'm no guru of any sort. I'm just a nature boy, That's how I got into the survival thing. Is just I'm just a nature freak, and I'm a nature freak who woke up. Who instead of like I went out back in the day, I just retreated into the wilderness and had a hermitage, and I knew that the world was screwed up and there's nothing I could do about it, and I'm just going to let it go on without me. And I realized I couldn't do that anymore. And people are shocked, and you can't really. You want to take people and
wait a minute.
grab them by the.
Can I? That's interesting to me, because I've often thought, because people say, "What are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Iceland?" And I'm like, "Well, you go to the Northwest Territories or somewhere, and just worry about yourself, take care of yourself. Maybe get away from everything." I mean, that's kind of what you did. You went and said, "I've had it. That's it. I'm going to go off and I'm going to do my own thing." And you embarked in that endeavor.
Yeah, basically, I kind of withdrew myself from the human race as such. I mean, I was never completely alone, but I moved. One day I just decided I'd had enough, and I sold all my stuff. Either sold it or gave it away, and I just started traveling across the country. Didn't know where I was going. Didn't know where I was going to end up. All I knew was that there was something out there that I was dissatisfied where I was, and I was. You can be cliche about it and say I was trying to find myself or whatever. I don't know what it was. All I knew was that I just wanted to explore and discover. And I ended up in northern Arizona, up on the Mogollon Plateau. Settled down in a little town called Flagstaff, a little town up in the mountains there, up in the north. And then after
Hold on a sec. Hold on. We'll pick it up at you settling in Flagstaff. I've been there. It's gorgeous area.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna be back with Ed Corcoran and more Wide Awake News Ready in just a few minutes, guys. Please hang tight. All right, guys. Hopefully you were watching the Justin TV feed. You saw Ed and I have a little conversation about his journey that he had. I'm assuming this was in your younger years. This is when you were. You look pretty young now, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm older than I used to be. This is from my mid 20s to my mid 30s was that whole
that period, the soul searching.
Yeah. That whole transformative period, and it's hard to encapsulate it in a nutshell. But yeah, it was. I think I came back. I had to come back to Massachusetts due to my father, who was he passed away. He had terminal cancer, and I heard about that, and so I came back to New England. And and I'm living out in rural New Hampshire now. But yeah, from like the age of 26 until maybe my late 20, until I was like 36, 37. That's when I was living out west and traveling around and touring with a band at one point, and just really figuring out what I'm all about and what life is all about, and still figuring it out, really.
And isn't that amazing? I mean, for most people, it really does take something, and maybe not a decade-long soul search, across the country, 2,500 miles, living out in the desert with the tarantulas and the condors, but it takes something to shake your foundation of reality, and then when that occurs, you either go into a path of where you want to be self-enlightened, where you want to know the truth, and you're going to dig for yourself to find out what that truth is. And once you go down that path, you forget about it. You're not going back. I mean, you're not. If you're awake, you're always going to be awake, no matter if you want to be or not. No matter if you want to go back to just watching football and drinking beer or whatever the case may be. You can try it, but you're never going to fully be reintegrated into the matrix, as you say. Once your mind is open, it's hard to look at anything the same way again. It's hard to look at any news or listen to any politician or see any geopolitical event and have the same perspective that maybe your coworker does or you had before you were awake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and don't get me wrong, there are times I wanted to go back to sleep. I tried to go back to sleep, but you just can't. I liken it to that movie They Live, when Roddy Piper puts on those sunglasses and he can see what the signs really say and what the magazine what's on the magazine covers and everything. And yeah, once you can see that, I can't watch TV with the same eyes again. I can't hear the news without thinking, this is a load of BS, I can identify the programming now. I can see the conditioning. I've also studied NLP, and I've studied other like the Silva method and everything, and learning how the brain works and how it's manipulated and conditioned and programmed. And we are programmed as long as we have our eyes open throughout our entire waking day. And when you can see that, you don't fall for it anymore. And the thing what I was starting to say before the commercial break is, sometimes you want to grab somebody by the collar and just shake them and say, Why don't you see this? Why isn't this obvious to you? Why are you calling this a conspiracy theory when it's right in front of you? It's because it's contrary to what the television told them. It's contrary to what they said on CNN. It's contrary to nobody's talking about it on the news. Or like my mother always used to say, it's like, well, it must be true. They wouldn't be allowed to say it on television if it wasn't true. That kind of thing is as if the fact that it's being broadcast on a luminescent box in their living room, that lends it automatic credence and credibility. That's it's fascinating that all of this has happened over a relatively brief period of time. But we were already programmed before that. We were programmed by institutions like, the Vatican and the Church and everything. If they hadn't suppressed literacy and science, there would have never been a Middle Ages. We would have been hundreds of years ahead technologically, as well as spiritually, as well as and we wouldn't have allowed ourselves to be bamboozled the way we have.
Well, it's all control. There's no doubt about it. No, I mean any kind of hierarchical governmental control is just that. It's about controlling, and the influence of media is the quintessential tyrannical tool, the most powerful tool that's ever been created. And it has taken you're right, a very short period of time to have billions of people influenced by this, and you can shape opinion one way or the other. You can have society truly rip itself apart with the implementation of this dastardly tool, which is mass media, because it is so powerful and we are so conditioned, and it is nonstop, and it's 24/7, and it's always becoming more invasive. But I do see, like I said earlier, I see a threat to this power structure in this internet, because it was initially designed to survive a nuclear war, and it is so hard to try to shut it down. The free exchange of ideas and information isn't something that's going to go away without a fight, and very easily for that matter. And just the fact that you and I, a guy who's on the East Coast, I'm out here in Montana, and in the span of an hour, I've learned how you came to be awake. You sojourned across this country for 2,500 miles and shared your experience with us. But the notion that you're on here from New Hampshire telling people to wake up. I'm out here in Montana telling the people to wake up. You have a website doing exactly that as well as I do. This is a very dangerous thing, I think, to the powers that be. And that's why I do believe we'll see an assault on this ability to exchange ideas and information. We've already seen an assault, this attempt to get the control of the internet. My question in our a little bit of time left, it was, first of all, fascinating hour. I definitely want to get you back on. And for those of you who want to hear more of Ed and I together, you and I are working together tomorrow, are we not? I'm going to come on your program. And
that's right.
Yeah, and that'll be out Thursday for download.
Right. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Let me ask you this: with only about 6 minutes left in your appearance here tonight, where do you see us going in the near term? Because I'm very, very pessimistic. I'm very shocked with the speed that this unraveling seems to be occurring, and I'm very pessimistic where the next 6 months brings us.
Yeah, when people talk about one of the big things in the survival and preparedness realm is there's a lot of talk about 2012, Mayan calendar, all that kind of nonsense, and I don't believe 2012 is going to be the end of the world. However, there are a contingent of folks who are awake and who are we'll say enlightened, or maybe just undoing the bad wiring and learning to function on that higher frequency, that maybe this is going to be a period of mass enlightenment. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a new age prognosticator. I hope it's true. But there are an awful lot of people who are waking up now more than ever, and it's easy to get discouraged when you look around, you turn on the television and everything. But I think there's an awful lot of people who are getting fed up, and there are people who are waking up, and there are people who they ain't buying it anymore. And just yesterday I posted on my website, there are actually 18 petitions now, and this is not being delivered by the states, but there are 18 petitions to secede from the United States on the whitehouse.gov website.
That's right.
Now, this is not state government calling for this. These are individuals, but still, I think it's telling, and it's sending a clear message that people are getting fed up, and they don't like what's going on, and they don't want to see more of it. And it's not a. I'd like to believe it's not a partisan thing. I'd like to believe that it's not just liberals and liberals and Republicans, conservatives rather. So I'm trying to be optimistic, and there's a lot more people like you and I out there now than there were a couple years ago when I first started, and there are a lot more people now who are actually starting to realize, since CNN has gotten busted a couple times for broadcasting fake news and getting paid by governments to report or to downplay or to completely just omit news that's going on, like what was happening in Bahrain. I think people are starting to wake up, and they're starting to realize that what they're getting from the mainstream media is not the truth, and they need to look to the internet for it. Where, I mean, it's a kind of a mixed bag. When you tell somebody you found out some information on the internet, you almost feel like you have to legitimize it because people automatically say, hear the expression, "Oh, you read that on the internet. Oh, that must be true." Then people are suspicious of that information, but there's just an awful lot going on.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. But you're talking about conditioning a minute ago through the media, right? The conditioning we're on 24/7, whatever time that boob tube's on, and you talk about the internet as being you have to justify your information, and you even see that in ad campaigns. You probably have seen that one, or maybe you haven't. But there's ad campaigns about how erroneous the information over the internet is. And when this goes to when you're awake, you have to view everything through a different prism. I see this commercial, and I'm like, well, yeah, this is a message to let everybody know. If you hear something on the internet, then it's absolutely you're an idiot if you happen to believe it. Even though you're right, mainstream media has been caught. The tail wagging the dog, right? They propagandize and stage news for the consumption of the people of this country. They can get caught in it, yet it just goes by the wayside as being another event. But if you hear a piece of news over the internet, you have to justify and give all kinds of links and information and proof and stats to go with it, just to rationalize your point of view. I do agree with you on the point that we have more and more people waking up every single day. I am worried. What I am not optimistic about is I know we're going to be entered into a crisis of reality, probably sooner rather than later. And the hope there is, I truly believe the system isn't going to change until everybody wakes up one way or another. And they're probably going to wake up in the midst of some crisis, one crisis or another, when it affects them.
In a FEMA camp.
Yeah, exactly, in a FEMA camp. My fear is that we go into this crisis and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be angry, mad, feel betrayed, but they're going to blame the wrong person. They're going to blame the guy who lives across the street because it was foreclosed on, or they're on welfare, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's more incumbent upon you and myself to keep pounding this message as long as we can, because it's inevitable that we're going to have some sort of a breakdown crisis. It's just what on the backside of that is going to be tell the direction of this country and this planet. Ed. Yeah. Fascinating guy. I want to get you back on the program. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your initial story with us. We'll get you back on and we'll talk more about prepping and how we met Chris Atkin of Legacy Freeze-Dried Foods, and John will talk about that. We'll talk about prepping. Ed Corcoran, guys, his website, I'm going to drop it into the chat room right now. It is survivalandbeyond.net. Please check it out and visit it. And you can also hear his and my interview that we're going to do tomorrow, broadcast on Thursday later this week. Go to his site, survivalandbeyond.net. All right, guys, enjoy Jeff Rintz. He is coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.